Hey guys, I'm ChristopherJMUA and welcome back to my channel. And welcome back to another episode of Makeup 101. Today's focus, foundation. Today we're going to be covering what it is, some history of foundation, different formulations, different application methods, and different coverages. So if that's something that interests you, if you'd like to know a little bit more about foundation and get the 101 on it, then stay exactly where you are, keep doing exactly what you're doing, and keep on watching. Welcome to Makeup 101, the series on my channel dedicated to every step of the makeup routine. This is the second video in this series. The first video I will leave linked right here. We covered primer in that video, everything there was to know about primer. Now let's address foundation. So first, what is it? Foundation is a cosmetic typically used as a base for makeup. Some of the benefits are evening complexion, covering flaws, adjusting skin tone, and sometimes there are added ingredients in foundations to achieve differing results. Like some have salicylic acid for acne-prone skin, some have oils for dry skin, some have dimethicones to absorb extra oil. There's many different types of ingredients that can be added to change the general aspects of a foundation. Then a little backstory for foundation. Did you know that foundation or face makeup is referenced in the Bible? I did not know that. In Ezekiel 23:40, face painting is mentioned. In ancient Greece, women would use lead powder and white chalk for their face base because it would help lighten skin, and light porcelain-like skin was very desirable. In the Italian Renaissance, they used water-soluble lead paint instead to thin it down a little bit. Then in the 17th century, ceruse was made. I think that's how you pronounce it. Ceruse or kirus, not sure. But it was a lethal mixture of vinegar and white lead. It killed tons of people. Can you imagine dying because you wanted to feel beautiful? Then after that, way after that, Carl Bowden created grease paint to conceal the edge between his wig and his forehead, leading to, in 1914, Max Factor created flexible grease paint that was a little bit more reflective and a little more skin-like, so they could have something to use on the studio that would still look like skin. And that's essentially where we get the derivative of our modern day foundation. Of course, it would all start with theater. Now, because there are a ton of different kinds of people and skin in the world, that would lead you to believe there are a ton of different varieties of formulations of foundations to fit those specific needs and skin types. There's actually five common ones. Really, there's only 4 common ones, but there are 5 in general. You've got silicone-based foundations like the Maybelline Matte and Poreless foundation. Having silicone in a foundation is kind of like having a primer made into your foundation already. It helps the foundation spread a little easier over the skin and fill pores, fine lines, etc. But silicone also helps mattify the skin and continue to help absorb oil throughout the day. And you can typically discover what formulation your foundation has by looking at the ingredient list on the back. With silicones, the first few ingredients, usually the first, second, and third ingredient, will either be a word ending in cone, like a dimethicone, like silicone, or sometimes as a second and third ingredient, they'll list something like siloxane, which is also a silicone base. Then we've got oil-based foundations. Like this Kosas tinted face oil. Oil-based foundations are a little bit thicker in their emollients. Is that a word? I think that's a word. And they're a little more dense, just like the grease paint by Carl Bowden was. Oil-based foundations are also really hydrating, so they're great for drier skin. Then we have water-based foundations like the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop Full Coverage Foundation. Water-based foundations usually give a little bit more of a natural appearance. They're also really great for drier skin because you're putting water on it to keep it hydrated, so it makes sense that it would keep you a little more natural looking. They're also a little more gentle on the skin and are wonderful if you're acne prone. Then we have powder foundations like the Tarte Amazonian Clay Full Coverage Powder Foundation. You can typically get more buildable coverage out of a powder foundation, but they can be a little bit drier, so if you have more oily skin, a powder foundation is fantastic. And usually with powder foundations, the coverage most of the time depends on you and your preference, because you can build a lot of powder foundations up from sheer or light to full. And 9 times out of 10, even if you build them up to like really full, they never look cakey. Most of them. Then last, this isn't really a specific formulation, this is more like a container, I guess. We've got cushion foundations. These can also be water-based or oil-based usually, but I thought I would keep these as a separate formulation because they are in a cushion. Really all it is you have a cushion within the component and the liquid foundation is absorbed by the cushion. I personally really love cushion foundations for those days when I want just a light wash of color. It's so easy to apply and blend these out. That's why I wanted to give them an honorable mention. Our next topic is coverage. Coverage is something that is also very, very personal. For me and my preference, it changes every day. There are some days when I want just that light wash of color. There's some days when I want to get really good coverage, but not a whole mask. Then there are those days when I just want a new face. So it varies, and there are a lot of different foundations that have those different coverages so that you can choose the one that's right for you. What it means to have different coverage is usually the amount of pigment that gets mixed within the foundation. Normally you have some kind of clear binder, whether that be water, oil, silicone, then you have the pigment that's added into that binder. They come together to make your foundation formula. Sheer coverage foundation, like the MAC Studio Radiance Face and Body Sheer Coverage Foundation, has about 8 to 13% pigment. These typically go on really, really lightweight and sort of barely there, but they can build up to give you the coverage to take care of any discoloration. Then we bump up to light coverage formulations like the No. 7 Airbrush Away Foundation. This one's got 13 to 18% pigment. Next up, we've got medium coverage. That's usually about 18 to 23% pigment, like the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Matte Foundation. And last, we've got the fullest of the full, usually up to 35% pigment, like the Juvia's Place Full Coverage Foundation. This stuff is the mask. If you want a new face, you'll get it with this foundation. You've also got stage makeup, which is about 15% pigment. That is the most you're gonna get, but that needs to look good from the top stands in the very back of the stadium. You know what I mean? Usually, you're not going to be looking for that kind of coverage on the daily unless you suffer from some kind of skin condition that you want to cover up. That's when you start jumping into brands like Dermablend, Max Factor, if they even still exist. I'm not sure if they do, but brands like that. Ben Nye, probably. One of the hardest things I've seen in the industry when it comes to foundation is find that right undertone for you, because it's going to be different for everybody. Sometimes when you're tanner, you look a different undertone. Sometimes when you're really pale, you look a different undertone. Sometimes in different lighting, you look different. It's really hard to nail that down sometimes, so I completely get it. There are a couple of things that you can do that can help you find that undertone though, without you having to go through a lot of work. One of the first methods I prefer to use, because it's usually, most of the time, if you have purple or blue veins, like in your wrist, or if you have varicose veins that you can see, your skin is usually cool toned. You can sometimes also go off of what jewelry looks like on you. If you prefer gold jewelry and how it looks against your skin, you're usually going to be a little warmer skin tone. If you prefer silver and how that looks on your skin, you're usually going to be more cool toned. If you don't like either, you're probably going to be neutral, unless you just don't like jewelry. There's actually another method that I just recently learned while researching this video. A woman named Sheri Stroh, she does makeup and hair on Instagram. I'll try to leave her linked down below as well. She boasts a method called the white t-shirt test. And what you do is put on a white t-shirt, stand in natural lighting. That is the key here. That's always the key for finding your undertone. But with the white t-shirt on in natural light, look at your skin tone. If you see yellow, you're probably warm. If you see pink, you're probably cool. And if you see neither, you're probably neutral. You can go to the website called findation.com, like find foundation, super cute. Put in the brand and shade that you have currently that's a right match, and pick what brand you want a new foundation from, and it will shade match you based on the existing line from the previous brand. I think that's really neat if you've already found one you know and love. Let you branch off a little bit, try another brand without having to fear the wrong undertone. Most of the time, nothing is fail-safe. And if all else fails, you can always just get a neutral and use your bronzer, blush, highlighter, whatever to help the tones of your skin appear the way you want them to appear. So if you know you're cool, but you don't like the way cool foundations look on you, like you don't want it to match and you just want to change your skin tone, you can always do that. Because makeup is meant to be what you want it to be. If you do have problems a lot of the time finding your correct shade match or undertone, you can always buy what's called mixing pigments as well. I know LA Girl, I think, make some, and they have a few different colors like blue, red, green. I think they have green. But you can use mix-ins like that. If you have the foundation already that you bought that you can't return and it's not the right undertone for you, you can mix in those pigments to give you that correct undertone. Granted, you'll have to understand a little bit about color theory, which we'll get to when we get to concealer a little bit. We'll kind of touch on that. And I might do a dedicated color theory video that's strictly talking about color correction, color theory, undertone, shade matching, etc., etc. And last, let's talk about application techniques. This is all down to tools. There are a few methods that you can apply foundation or creams of any kind, really. You've got your wet sponge, of course, your brush as well, and your fingers. And each tool offers a different method of application to build up different coverages. A lot of it's just preference, but some people do use different tools to achieve different results in the end. I have now mutilated my swatch arm with Sharpie so that I can show you guys the difference in a sponge application and a brush application. Finger application is obviously going to give you the most coverage and the coverage that the foundation bottle says you're going to get because it's not absorbing any extra product. The brush absorbs a little bit of extra product and the sponge absorbs the most extra product. Especially if you leave the sponge dry, your foundation isn't really going to apply. So you need to dampen your sponge for sure if you don't want to just soak up all your foundation. Now starting with the MAC Studio Radiance, I'm just going to take 1, 2 drops. And using my brush, I'm going to go ahead and blend out the top dot. And then using the sponge. You can already tell definite difference in coverage, even just between those two. And that was just with sheer coverage. Now light coverage with the number 7 Airbrush Away foundation. 1 dot on top, 1 dot on bottom. And again, brush blend on the top. And sponge on the bottom. And there we have light coverage foundation. Next, medium coverage. This is the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Matte. 1 little dot and 1 little dot. Brush blend and sponge blend. And last, the fullest of the full with Juvia's Place. 1 dot, 1 dot. Now brush on the top. And sponge on the bottom. So now you can tell where all 8 Sharpie dots were. There are definite differences between each one. The difference in between the brush on top and sponge on bottom is subtle between each foundation, but definitely changes the overall outcome of the way it looks. As you can tell, there's definitely a little bit more to foundation that meets the eye. But once you understand the general reasoning for foundation, why it is the way it is, what it does, how it works, it gets easier and easier to figure out how you can make it work for you. And that's what all this is about, how it can work for you. I loved going over everything foundation. Foundation is one of my favorite products because it's what makes the magic happen. It takes you from 0 to hero, just like that. Thank you, Disney. If there was anything I missed during this video that you want to talk about, by all means, definitely comment it down below. I'd love to have a conversation with you about whatever that topic may be, and it could even help some other people. You never know. I hope you got something out of this video, even just a little bit of something about foundation. If you did, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up, or if you just enjoyed it. It does let me know that you enjoy the content, but also lets me know what future content to prepare for you guys. And so that you don't miss any of the episodes in my Makeup 101 series, be sure to subscribe before you go and hit the little notification bell right beside subscribe so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. I'm gonna try to make a Makeup 101 video at least every other week, if not every week, if I can pull it off. So stay tuned for the entire routine for a full face of makeup. Also, if you like any of my looks and you want to see more like them, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and TikTok. My username is the same for everything. It's just ChristopherJMUA. And if you gain nothing out of this video, if you gain nothing out of any of my videos, please at least gain this. And that is to always remember and never forget that you are absolutely beautiful. And I love you guys. Bye.